All right, let's jump right in.
Okay.
Today, we're ripping open a source that promises, well, the surprisingly simple truth behind achieving extraordinary results.
Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, our mission for this deep dive, basically to extract the absolute most potent insights from this material, giving you the shortcut to understanding why some people seem to just crush it.
Uh-huh.
Achieving way more than others, all with the same 24 hours we all get.
It's a fundamental question, isn't it?
Yeah.
We all have the same time, the same starting point in that regard.
Exactly.
So why the vast difference in outcomes? Is it just about grinding harder, putting in more hours?
Right. Is that the secret?
Well, this source says pretty definitively, no. That's not the core answer.
Okay, so what is?
The real leverage the material suggests comes from applying a principle that's actually everywhere, sort of hiding in plain sight.
Which is?
It's about what they call going small.
Going small. Interesting.
And the origin story for this principle is fascinating. It didn't start as some grand theory. It came out of a coaching session trying to help someone who was just overwhelmed by a massive to-do list.
We've all been there.
Totally. So the coach kept pushing them to narrow their focus, from a long list, maybe down to 3 things, then 2.
Right, keep cutting.
Until, in this moment of pushing for ultimate clarity, the question emerged, what's the one thing you can do such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary?
Wow, that's a powerful question.
It really is. And focusing solely on that question, finding that single answer, apparently unlocked a completely different level of result.
Mm.
It showed that concentrated focus, going small, was the kind of hidden engine of extraordinary success.
And once you see it, you start noticing the pattern everywhere.
Exactly. Look at highly successful individuals or companies. Their success often traces back to a disproportionate focus on one key area or action.
Which brings us nicely to the core idea of powering this deep dive, the power of going small. It's counterintuitive, right? We think extraordinary results must come from extraordinary effort spread across everything.
Right, doing more.
But the insight here is it comes from focusing disproportionately on fewer actions, like really focusing.
And the most classic proof for this, which the source definitely highlights, is the 80-20 principle, Pareto's principle.
Ah, yes,
You've
Pareto.
probably heard of it. Roughly 20% of your effort yields 80% of your results. Joseph M. Juran took this idea, originally about wealth distribution, and applied it to quality control in manufacturing.
Okay, how did that work?
Well, he found that a small minority of defects caused the vast majority of problems. The vital few versus the trivial many.
Duran's genius wasn't just seeing the principle, it was applying the insight. Not everything matters equally.
Exactly, that's the key takeaway.
In fact, very few things matter a lot more than others. And the shift in thinking changes everything. Your standard to-do list, that overwhelming collection of tasks,
Yeah.
it transforms into what the source calls a success
A
list.
success list. I like that.
It's not about doing everything. It's about prioritizing the vital few actions that will move the needle the most.
And you see this principle play out constantly in the world of business. I mean, think about iconic companies.
I too.
Colonel Sanders wasn't selling a huge menu. He started with one secret chicken recipe. True. KFC.
Adolf Coors found immense success focusing on a single flagship product. Intel became Intel because of, well, microprocessors.
Right, they're one thing.
Starbucks became Starbucks because of coffee. Focused on that experience.
But it's not always the obvious revenue generator, is it? The source mentions Google.
Yeah, Google's one thing. The absolute foundation for everything else is search. That core function is what makes their massive advertising business even possible.
Okay, that makes sense. Or Star Wars, the source says, well, the merchandise might rake in more cash. The movies are the one thing that creates the universe and makes all that merchandise desirable in the first place.
That's a great point. The movies fuel the whole ecosystem.
Even a company as diverse as Apple has mastered this, not by doing everything at once, but by successfully transitioning their primary focus, their one thing, over time.
How so?
From the Mac to the iMac, then iTunes, iPod, iPhone, iPad. Each success created this kind of halo effect, pulling people into their ecosystem because the one product was so compelling.
Okay. And this isn't just for giant corporations, right? It applies personally, too.
Absolutely. Directly to personal success. Think about Oprah Winfrey. The source points to her critical relationship with Jeffrey D. Jacobs, who pushed her to start her own company, really focusing her entrepreneurial energy.
Okay.
Pat Matthews, an incredible impressionist painter, apparently built his mastery by committing to painting one painting every single day. That consistent focus.
Wow, one a day.
Angelo Morico became Italy's most successful tour guide, not just by knowing Italy, but through his singular passion for it. Gilbert Tuhobonye, a survivor who found healing through running, turned that passion into a skill, a profession, and a way to give back.
There's a pattern there.
What you see in these personal stories is a powerful, virtuous cycle.
Hmm.
That initial passion leads you to invest disproportionate time and energy, which builds skill.
Right.
Better skill leads to better results, which feels good, it's rewarding, and that fuels even more passion and commitment.
So focus breeds success, which breeds more focus.
Exactly. You even see it on a global scale in philanthropy. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Oh, yeah.
They set out to tackle massive challenges like health and education,
Yeah.
but they narrowed their focus in global health down to stamping out infectious disease.
Yeah.
And within that, identified vaccines as a powerful one thing, relatively inexpensive, incredibly impactful.
So they drill down.
Melinda Gates asked the key question, where is the place you can have the biggest impact with the money? That question led them right to their focusing point.
So this idea of going small, of focusing disproportionately on the vital few, it's not just a productivity hack.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's a foundational principle for achieving extraordinary results wherever you look.
Yeah.
It's fundamental.
Okay, so if going small is the how, what that drives it? The material uses a fantastic analogy, the iceberg.
Right, the iceberg. What you see is productivity, the actions, the output, but that's just the tip, right? Maybe 19th of the whole mass.
Visible part.
Exactly.
Right.
It's floating because of the huge submerged bulk beneath it. Purpose and priority. Productivity isn't the driver, it's the outcome of those deeper things.
Okay, let's unpack that. Purpose. That's the big why.
That's it. It's the thing that truly fuels you, the reason you get up in the morning, what keeps you going when things inevitably get tough.
Your motivation.
Yeah, it's the one thing you want your life to ultimately be about. The author shares his own purpose, to help people live their greatest life possible. That's his driving force.
And there's a connection to happiness here, isn't there?
A very strong one. And here's a key nugget from the source, reinforced by research like Dr. Martin Seligman's. Lasting happiness isn't something you find by pursuing happiness directly.
Really? How does it work then?
It happens as a byproduct on the way to fulfillment. When your daily actions, which are driven by your priority, connect to and build towards your bigger purpose. That's where you find the most powerful, enduring sense of joy.
So it's about meaning and engagement.
Exactly. Engagement and meaning are the true paths, not chasing the feeling itself.
Got it. Okay, then you have priority. The word itself is interesting, the source points out.
It really is. It came into English way back, 14th century, from the Latin prior, meaning first, and crucially, it was singular.
Singular, only one.
Yes. If something was most important, it was the priority. Just one. It wasn't until the 20th century that we started using the plural priorities.
Huh, I never thought about that. Priorities. You say it all the time.
We do, and suddenly we need these clumsy phrases like highest priority or top priority, just to get back to the original meaning of the word.
So extraordinary results demand reclaiming that original singular meaning.
That's the argument. Setting a priority and committing to acting on it.
And this also involves connecting what you do today to where you want to be tomorrow.
Precisely. Research shows it's much more effective to visualize the process, like the actual study sessions needed for an A, than just visualizing the outcome, just picturing getting the A.
Focus on the steps, not just the prize.
Exactly. Focusing on the priority action today builds the future result.
Ultimately, the most successful people are the most productive people, but not just because they're frantically busy.
Right, it's not busyness.
They're productive because they have clarity on their purpose and they act consistently on their priority. Any system for time management, the source argues, should really be judged by whether it produces this kind of focused productivity.
That makes sense. But this raises the big question. How do you actually figure out what your one thing, your core priority should be?
Right.
Especially when you're faced with a big, complex goal.
Yeah, the how-to. This is where the source reveals what it calls the secret, something echoed by figures like Andrew Carnegie and Mark Twain.
Oh, what's the secret?
When faced with a huge, overwhelming task, the way to start is simply to break it down into the smallest possible pieces and just start. Start with the first one.
Okay, break it down. But the challenge then is identifying the right first step, right? Out of all the small pieces, which one do you tackle first?
Exactly. And this is the job of the focusing
The
question.
focusing question.
And questions themselves are incredibly powerful tools, aren't they? Voltaire said, judge a man by his questions rather than his answers.
Bacon. A prudent question is one half of wisdom. Gandhi believed the power to question is the basis of human progress.
Yeah, and studies even show asking questions can significantly boost learning. So the quality of the answers you get in life is fundamentally tied to the quality of the questions you ask yourself.
There's a poem mentioned, My Wage, by J.B. Rittenhouse, that captures this beautifully.
How so?
The final lines reflect on what life gave him,
Yeah.
concluding, any wage I had asked of life, life would have willingly paid.
Yeah.
The point is, life kind of pays whatever wage you ask for. How you phrase the questions you ask yourself, the expectations you set, determines the answers and, ultimately, the reality you experience.
So how do you craft the right kind of question for this?
Well, the source maps out 4 types of questions in a simple quadrant. You have small and specific, like increase sales by 5% this year.
Right.
Small and broad, like just increase sales. Big and broad, maybe double sales.
Right. Big, but big.
And then what you need for extraordinary results is big and specific, something like double sales in the next 6 months.
Okay, big and specific. It challenges you, stretches you, but gives you a clear target and time frame.
Exactly. And here's where the magic happens. You take that big and specific question
Yeah.
and you convert it into the focusing question format. What's the one thing I can do, followed by your goal and time frame, like this week,
Okay.
such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary.
What's the one thing I can do, goal and time frame, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary?
That format is incredibly potent because it forces you to filter out all the noise and identify the single highest leverage activity.
The first domino.
Precisely. It turns a daunting, big and specific goal into a manageable, actionable first step. What's the one domino you need to knock over right now?
Okay, so you've asked the powerful question. Now you need a great answer. And the source points out that great answers are rarely the easy or obvious ones.
No, they usually live outside your comfort zone. They're inherently new to you in some way.
So how do you find one? Where do these great answers come from?
The material suggests a 2-step process. First, you research and study the highest achievers in that area. This is benchmarking, understanding what's working today, what current peak performance looks like.
Learn from the best.
Exactly. Second, you try to anticipate where things are heading. This is trending, looking ahead, predicting tomorrow's best practices if you can.
So if you're facing a challenge and truly don't know the answer, your first one thing might actually be to research.
Absolutely. To search for clues, for role models, for people who have solved similar problems before. Books, the internet, mentors. These are your resources to find that new answer.
Okay. Benchmarking and trending.
This process is fundamental to solving big problems and finding innovative solutions. But you have to be prepared.
Prepared for what?
Implementing a truly great new answer often requires you to change. It might demand reinventing yourself or adopting entirely new behaviors that feel awkward or difficult at first.
A new answer requires new action.
You got it.
Knowing your one thing is fantastic, essential even, but it doesn't achieve anything until you actually do it.
True. Knowledge isn't power until it's applied.
Which brings us to the crucial piece, making it happen primarily through time blocking and a set of core commitments.
Yes, time blocking is presented as pretty much non-negotiable for people achieving extraordinary results.
Define that for us.
It's actively scheduling and then defending large, uninterrupted blocks of time, specifically for working on your one thing.
Scheduling and defending. I like that. And the recommendation is clear.
Pretty clear. Block time early in the day, if possible, ideally a minimum of 4 hours before the day's distractions can derail you.
Like Stephen King.
Exactly. Think about Stephen King, the incredibly prolific writer. He famously blocks his mornings for writing. That's his sacred productive time. Nothing interrupts it.
People might hear that and think, yeah, well, that's easy for Stephen King now.
Right. But the question posed in the source is powerful. Does he get to time block because he's Stephen King? Or is he Stephen King because he consistently time blocked even when it was hard?
Cause and effect.
He found ways to protect that time long before writing paid all the bills. It was a commitment.
There's an anecdote in there about an executive assistant who started time blocking a project.
Yeah, I remember that. Initially, she was interrupted constantly. People were just used to having open access to her. But within just a week, something shifted. People learned she was unavailable during those specific blocks. Meetings got rescheduled around it. And her productivity on that key project just went through the roof.
People adapt if you hold the boundary.
They do. This highlights Paul Graham's point about the maker schedule needing those large blocks of uninterrupted time for creative or deep work
Uh-huh.
versus the manager schedule, which is often fragmented by meetings. Successful organizations find ways to protect that maker time, often by clustering meetings together.
Makes sense. And there's a simpler tool mentioned too, Jerry Seinfeld's method.
Ah, yes, don't break the chain. It's brilliant in its simplicity. For a daily habit, like writing jokes in his case, you just mark a big X on a physical calendar every day you do it.
Okay.
The goal is just to keep that chain of X's going, unbroken. It's a visual motivator for consistent daily action.
So it reminds us that perseverance isn't one massive leap.
No, it's many short sprints, one after another. Consistency.
Okay, so beyond just scheduling the time, there are 3 commitments the source identifies as vital for supporting your one thing.
Yes. 3 core mindsets or approaches.
First,
First, embrace extraordinary effort. This isn't necessarily about working 80 hours a week, but about being willing to push yourself, to go above and beyond what it counts, specifically on that one thing, giving it your best shot.
okay, focused intensity. Second,
Second, live with purpose, always keeping that big why front and center. It gives meaning to the daily grind and provides motivation when your willpower inevitably flags.
connects back to the iceberg. Third,
Third, live by priority. This means constantly seeking the best way to do something, not just relying on your natural ability or what feels comfortable.
what does that look like?
It's moving from what the source calls an E, or entrepreneurial mindset, which often relies on innate talent and stays in comfort zones,
Okay.
to a P, or purposeful mindset, which
Hmm.
actively seeks out the most effective tools and strategies, like using a chainsaw for firewood instead of struggling with an axe just because you're used to the axe.
Find the better tool, the better method.
Exactly. This P mindset is what helps you break through those okay plateaus when your current level of skill or effort isn't enough to reach the next level of results.
Gotcha. And you can't talk about commitment without talking about accountability.
Absolutely crucial. Dr. Gail Matthews' research is mentioned, and it's really compelling. Simply writing down your goals significantly increases your likelihood of achieving them.
Just writing them down helps.
Apparently so. But writing goals and sharing your progress regularly with someone, like a friend or a coach,
Yeah.
that made people 76.7% more likely to succeed. Almost 77%.
Wow, that's a massive difference.
It is. Having someone you report to, even informally, acts as a powerful force multiplier for sticking to your one thing.
Okay, so we know the concept, the drivers, the focusing tool, the need for time blocking and commitment and accountability, but what gets in the way?
Ah, yes. The obstacles, the source is clear.
Yeah.
There are 4 thieves that routinely steal your focus and productivity.
The 4 thieves.
Okay. And think about that famous Good Samaritan experiment they mentioned.
Remind me.
Seminary students, studying to be ministers, some even preparing talks on the parable of the Good Samaritan. Yet, when they were told they were running late for their talk,
Yeah.
the vast majority walked right past someone clearly in distress, slumped in a doorway. Their schedule, their immediate priority, overrode their values and intentions.
Wow. That shows how easily we can get derailed, even with good intentions.
Exactly. So thief number 1, the inability to say no.
This is a big one for many people.
It's huge because saying yes to something that isn't your one thing is automatically saying no to your one thing, especially to the time block you've reserved for it.
Every yes is a no to something else.
Precisely. Seth Godin has great advice on this. Say no quickly, clearly, maybe respectfully explain why, or point them to someone who can help.
Or, as Bill Cosby put it, the key to failure is trying to please everybody.
That sums it up. You can also get smarter about saying yes sometimes. Maybe you build FAQs, create training materials, delegate effectively. Leverage your yeses to free up time.
But the core skill is protecting that valuable time block by saying no when necessary.
Definitely. Okay, thief number 2, the fear of chaos.
Fear of chaos.
Yeah. When you focus intensely on your one thing, other things will inevitably get less attention. Your inbox might pile up, other projects might gather dust, the house might get messy.
Right, things fall behind.
This creates a sense of imbalance, a mess.
Right.
And many people fear that mess.
So what's the insight here?
The critical insight is to embrace that mess to some extent. Recognize that letting some things slide, some non-critical balls drop intentionally, is often the necessary price for achieving something truly extraordinary on your one thing.
Accept the trade-off.
Yes. Counterbalancing isn't about achieving perfect balance in all areas all the time. That's probably impossible. It's about managing the chaos just enough so you don't go completely off the rails, but accepting that things won't be perfectly tidy elsewhere, at least temporarily.
Prioritize what matters most and accept the resulting mess.
You got it. Okay, thief number 3, poor health habits.
The physical side.
This one is fundamental. Your physical energy level is directly tied to your willpower, your mental endurance. And willpower isn't infinite. It gets depleted throughout the day.
Like a muscle getting tired.
Kinda, yeah. And willpower needs to be refueled, ideally with good nutrition. The source mentions complex carbohydrates and proteins that release energy slowly. Sleep is critical too.
So if you want to tackle your one thing effectively, especially during that prime time block,
You need peak willpower available. Protecting your physical health, sleep, diet, exercise is literally protecting your capacity to focus on your most important tasks.
the source says most people bring won't power to their tasks.
Because their willpower is already drained by other things or poor health habits.
Exactly. And the last one, thief number 4.
Thief number 4. Your environment doesn't support your goals. This applies to both the people around you and your physical space.
People and place, how so?
Well, who are you spending time with? Are they supportive of your goals and your need for focused time? Or do they constantly try to pull you into distractions or maybe even bring negativity?
Surround yourself with supportive people.
It makes a huge difference. And your physical space matters too. Is your workspace set up to minimize distractions and make focusing on your one thing easy? Or is it full of triggers that pull you away?
Take control of your environment.
Yes, you have to take ownership. Don't just be a victim of circumstances. Find creative ways to protect your time block and your focus. Even if it means closing the door, putting on headphones, finding a different room, whatever it takes.
Okay, so we've covered the core idea, the drivers, the question, making it happen, and the thieves. Bringing all these pieces together, the source really drives home the idea that this journey to extraordinary success is fundamentally an inside job.
It really is. It doesn't start with external circumstances changing. It starts internally with clarifying your purpose, setting your priority, and committing to intentional productivity.
It's about having absolute clarity on what matters most to you.
Yeah. The source references that common message you hear from elders reflecting on their lives.
Hmm.
They rarely regret the things they did, but often regret the things they didn't do.
The chance is not taken.
Right. The core regret is often not living a life true to themselves. Knowing what matters most ensures that your actions, driven by your one thing, create a life with fewer regrets down the line.
The material shares a lovely story that illustrates this perfectly. About a father and his son in a puzzle.
Oh yeah, the map puzzle.
Yeah.
The father wants to keep his son busy so he can read the paper in peace, right?
Yeah. Exactly. So he tears a world map from a magazine into lots of little pieces and tells the boy to put it back together, figuring it'll take him ages.
But the boy comes back super fast, map perfectly assembled.
Right. The father's astonished, asks how he did it so quickly.
And the boy explains he noticed on the back of the map pieces there was a picture of a man.
Uh-huh.
He realized if he could just put the man together correctly, the world on the other side would just fall into place.
And that's the ultimate takeaway, isn't it?
Beautifully put. Putting the man, yourself, your core purpose, your singular priority, your one thing together, allows the world, your life, your work, your results to fall into place around it.
Focus internally and the external falls into alignment.
It's not about tackling the whole world first. It's about getting your own core, your one thing right.
So the final challenge from the source, and I guess from us doing this deep dive, is to actually put the one thing to work in your life. This isn't just a concept for your job or business.
Not at all. You can and should use the focusing question in any important area of your life.
Like family.
Absolutely. For your family. What's the one thing I can do this week such that by doing it, it makes my marriage stronger? Or what's the one thing I can do tonight to spend more quality time with my kids?
Or for your health. What's the one thing I can do today to move closer to my fitness goal?
Exactly. Or for your community involvement, your learning, your spiritual life, finances. The format is always the same. What's the one thing I can do specific to this area and time frame such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary?
Find that leverage point.
Find that first domino. And just like with work, you need to time block for these areas too. Block time to maybe find the answer to your focusing question in these life areas.
Right. Thinking time.
And then, crucially, block time to act on that answer. Make it happen.
There's that great final anecdote about the author's wife, Mary, that shows it in practice.
Oh, yeah. After he shared the book's concepts with her, he apparently asked her to do something he thought was important at that moment.
And her response,
Her immediate, insightful response was, Gary, that's not my one thing right now.
huh, perfect.
And they both understood exactly what she meant. She had identified her current top priority, and everything else, even a request from him, had to wait or fit around it.
It's about having that clarity, recognizing what your actual one thing is right now and whatever area of your life is most important at this moment.
And having the discipline and the courage to protect the time and energy needed for it.
So, zooming out from this deep dive, the path to achieving extraordinary results isn't about complexity or some superhuman effort spread thin across everything.
No, it's simple, though definitely not always easy. Go small, focus.
Identify your one thing, that single most important action in a specific area and time frame.
Find the best answer you can by learning from others and looking ahead. Benchmark and trend.
Make it happen by scheduling and defending the time for it, making sure it's driven by your purpose and your commitments.
And protect that focus fiercely from those common thieves, the inability to say no, the fear of chaos, poor health, and unsupportive environments.
Remember, as the source says, success is an inside job.
Put your core in order, focus on your man in the puzzle, and the rest will follow.
Okay, so based on everything we've just unpacked from this deep dive, here's a final thought for you listening. Think about the most important area of your life right now. Could be work, health, family, anything. What is the single specific first step you could take today to apply the one thing concept and move closer to the extraordinary results you want in that area?
What question do you need to ask yourself, and what's a one thing that answers it for you right now?
Thanks for listening. Visit our library and subscribe below for more book summaries. This has been a Sprint Reads production.